4th, public hearing for the City of Tampa's Barrio Latino Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm late, and Rich Simmons, the chair of the commission. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, wall sections. Staff presents a staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as your presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project, because your time will be limited to 3 minutes. Take some time now to summarize your comments, because 3 minutes can go by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public comment will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will discuss the case and then make their decision based upon the city ordinance, Chapter 27 of the city zoning code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, design review comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing. The BLC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any necessary permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. And we'll start with the introduction of the other commissioners, starting on my left.
Good morning. I'm Jose Gillette.
Liz Welch.
Jose Perez.
Good morning, Eric Schiller.
And from staff, we have Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Beverly Jusak, and Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from City Legal. Okay. We have the minutes from the last meeting, which was back in June 22nd, 2021. Has everyone had a chance to review those, or are there any comments, or could we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from June 21st.
Second.
Yeah, and
That's not from the city attorney's office, June 22nd of 2021.
Thank you. June 22nd,
yeah.
2021.
2021.
Okay, we have a motion. All in favor of said motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries by unanimous consent. Mr. Vila, any announcements?
Just for us to get started, good morning, everyone. Ron Vilas, staff of the City of Tampa Historic Preservation Department.
I don't think so.
And in your packets, you do have the administrative reviews that we did the prior month. There's your packet for comments in the future if you want to contact the office. Moving down the agenda, we have legal that will address ex parte communication and contract signatures.
Good morning, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the city attorney's office. Will the commissioners please state whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda? Hearing none for the record.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
you were
think
going to
we
say something?
stated before when this case came before us on case 21-31 that Liz and I serve on the YCDC board, the CIC board, and we've seen this project numerous times.
Do you have, and this question will be for both you, Mr. Chair, and Ms. Commissioner Welch. Do you have any personal or private financial gain in regards to the project of
No.
2131?
No.
No.
Knowing that the information that you are aware of regarding the projects, can you set that aside and ensure the applicant that you can be fair and impartial?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have no further, additionally, have there been any, have there also been any ex parte communications regarding any of the applications that are on the agenda?
Nope.
Okay, thank you so much.
At this time, addressing the continuations, there's one, which is BLC 21-165. It's for the address of 1708 East 4th Avenue. That was requested by the agent to be continued to the September 28th, 2021 public hearing at 9 a.m. And if we could have a motion for that, please.
Move to make a motion to continue BLC 21-165 for the property located at 1708 East 4th Avenue, as requested by the agent, to the September 28, 2021 public hearing at 9 a.m.
I second that.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
At this time, we're ready for the swearing. Everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand, including staff.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Okay.
The first case is BLC 21-131. This is for the address of 1211 East 7th Avenue. The zoning district for that long corridor that's going to be reviewed this morning, there are multiple zoning classifications. Starts with YC1 and then it goes, as it goes to the east, to YC7. The certificate of appropriateness, the request is for the archway lights replacement. The lights that are there now no longer function in a capacity that's safe. This project was reviewed at a prior public hearing. They are going to do a complete presentation and introduce some of the comments that were important at the last public hearing. Having said that, I'd like to walk you through the corridor, 7th Avenue. We're going to start from New Seal and then work our way towards the east to 26th. On your monitor, I have the Sanborn map. It shows starting on the project over here, which is New Seal, and then just working our way down to the eastern boundary of the district, which is 26. You see the heavy concentration of the reddish buildings, which are the commercial buildings along 7th Avenue. This is our vicinity map. Shows that the area local district goes a little bit farther to the west. This project doesn't go all the way to our western boundary. Starts at New Seal, as I stated, and it's a linear run all the way down 7th to 26th. This is just an overhead shot. Looking at some of the particulars, this is starting at New Seal and 7th Avenue. This is New Seal and 7th, which runs east and west. You have the gateway as a reference point. Just moving down the street a little bit towards the east. Some of the newer buildings. This is the hotel and the old Chansey building. This is where the trolley comes across 13th and 7th. Some of our success stories with the rehabilitation of some of the buildings, our period buildings. See the positive influence that this board has on the corridor 7th Avenue. 2 Lane Street, you see some artwork and some tile work on each side of the street. This is also a new hotel. Just continuing down, you see some of the amenities that are there. You see some of the poles, catenary poles that were left behind. You see some of the light poles. See some of the encroachment for the signs that are there, flyboard lights, and then the solid waste receptacles. As you get more into the core, it becomes a little bit more challenging with the placement of the poles. You see the introduction of the palm trees, some of the encroachments that are there, and then the lights themselves. This is at Central Ybor. This is the main crosswalk across 7th Avenue and 16th. Try to get the lights in here to closer shot and the existing poles. See the parking wells here, how the poles are integrated into the canopies currently, and then how they span across the street. This is at 17th and 7th. Just staying at the pedestrian level as we continue down. Looking at a corner here, you have the benches. some more benches, a series of palm trees. Another corner switching station, and some of the needed vertical elements in the area. Some of the hex pavers over here on each side of the street. See some artwork with the tobacco leaves that are integrated. You see the trees and the the plantain wells. Close up of some of the artwork that's in the district. Typical corner with brick crosswalks. This is the termination of the project to 26th, and to conclude with just one night shot. That concludes the photo presentation, and I have Ms. Orr come and address the board.
Good morning, Courtney Orr, Ybor City CRA Manager and listed agent of this enhancement project. This is in regard to, as Ron has been explaining, the 7th Avenue iconic archway lights that suspend over 7th Avenue. And due to code and safety reasons, they must be taken down. And since they are an iconic element of the district, we can't imagine them not being replaced. So we have been working with TICO, a very unique partnership over the last several years to replace these archway lights. And I just wanted to provide a very brief explanation of why we are here today. We have a full presentation that Kenji Plenner and Jeff Trim will now present to you. Thank you.
One second. All right. Good morning. I want to thank the Commission for allowing us the opportunity to present this 7th Avenue Archway project and also the 7th Avenue Streetscape project. My name is Kenji Plenner. I work with KCI, and KCI will be responsible for the design, layout, permit submittal, and managing the construction of this project. And to my left is Jeff Trim.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Trim with Sam Schwartz. We have a contract with the city to provide design plans for the demolition and restoration. That's going to be working hand in hand with the TICO contractor. So we're going to be focused on the streetscape elements while Kenji is focused on the lighting design.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, so quickly go over the agenda. Ron's already touched on the location of the project and a very high-level overview. I'd like to show you some more of the existing conditions out there to demonstrate why this project is needed. And we'll go through some of the components that are going to be used as well, the lighting, the archways, and also address some of the concerns that were brought up at the last meeting where we had an opportunity to present. We'll also be going through the streetscape materials and maintenance of traffic and the proposed current schedule. All right, so this project, thank you. This project has been going on for quite some time. There have been many stakeholders involved over the years. You can see here, City of Tampa, TICO, the YCDC, and also the Barrio Latino Commission. As Ron stated earlier, this project is going to be in between, on 7th Avenue between Nucio and 26th Street. There will be lights and archway poles on the north and south side of 7th Avenue. An overall scope for the archway lighting project, 21 decorative LED archways are going to be installed. That'll consist of 42 poles, and 32 light poles and LED light fixtures will also be installed. That will require the removal of 66 poles. One of the great things about this project is the removal of 5,600 feet of conductor for the streetlights, and we're going to go back with around 3,500 feet. So it's going to help it's going to help the aesthetic. It's going to help to clean up the area and remove some abandoned wire that's out there. And Ron did touch on some of the poles and the conditions of the poles out there. Some poles are going to be, they will remain in place, but they will be refurbished with a durable black coating that'll be in line with the architectural components along 7th Avenue.
So again, for the streetscape rehabilitation, our plans will go in and show what demolition is going to be required in preparation of TECO's crews coming in and installing the light poles. So we'll go in, and then those areas, about 5 by 5, we'll remove some of the pavers. We'll protect and store some of the commemorative pavers so that we can replace them. We'll use some of the gravel base that's there. We'll also remove concrete curbs and pavement, and then we'll remove any traffic signs or relocate any, and then waste containers.
All right, let's go over some of the existing conditions along 7th Avenue. All right, this pole right here is on the intersection of 7th Avenue and 16th Street. This is the pole that's in front of the 7-Eleven, and the first two pictures are looking west. As you can see, there's a lot going on with this pole. It can certainly be cleaned up. In addition to it being very busy, it's also leaning to the to the south considerably as you take a look at it, looking to the east. Some of the archways are in various states of disrepair. You can see in the left-hand picture, this somehow got struck, maybe during a parade, maybe a vehicle. In any event, it's been damaged, it's bent, and there's another view of some of the, a good example of an archway right there in front of the Ritz Theater. The condition of some of the coatings on the poles, obviously it's in a state of disrepair, a lot of corrosion. Some of the poles here will be refurbished again with that durable black coating to bring it in line with all the architectural components along 7th Avenue. All right, here's a nighttime view. This is something that we didn't have last time. I took the opportunity to go down to 7th Avenue at night, take some pictures, and as you can see, there's many of the archways. Some of them don't come on, some of them do come on. They have very few lights, so this project will certainly be an improvement.
Okay, so I'll talk briefly about some of the existing streetscape conditions. In the upper left, you can see that's the new construction that took place in front of the new hotel, where it had those new Adobe colored pavers and some hex pavers. You can see a picture in the middle of the tobacco leaf that we'll talk about a little bit later. Again, there's some waste containers that'll be relocated, and kind of in the bottom right there, you'll see what we'll call like older pavers or the Biscayne pavers that'll be replaced along the project.
All right, so the archways. Here's a fully dimensioned drawing of the archways with the medallion in the center. The poles are going to be overall length of 35 feet, 29 feet out of ground. There will be one exception. One pole will be 35 feet out of ground. One archway will be 35 feet out of ground for electrical clearance reasons. But the clearance to the bottom of the medallion is 18 feet 10 inches, and that provides plenty of clearance for road traffic per DOT regulations. All right, so renderings were asked for last time. You said this is a lighting project. I want to see the lights. I want to see the archways. So we performed, KCI performed some digital renderings of the archways. This one here is in front of the Columbia, looking west. A request was also made to have the archways in black and in the aluminum color that currently exists out there. So that was done as well. So this next drawing depicts the archways in the aluminum color. It's hard to tell from this picture the difference because of the light and the shading in the rendering, but it'll be more apparent in the future renderings that I'll show. All right, this here is on 7th Avenue, looking west near Carmine's and Gaspar's Grotto. This depicts the black archway, and this next rendering depicts the aluminum archway. A little bit more of a contrast there than the previous photo. All right, so this picture right here, I want you to pay very close attention. Take a good look at it. A comment was made about the medallion being large and imposing, and I wanted to address that. So the renderings here depict the archways accurately dimensioned, right from the engineered drawing, and also the locations are based off of the survey information that we have. So there are 2 archways in this pic. There were concerns that the archways along 7th Avenue with the medallion, as pictured, would create some sort of a canopy or be a cover. But as you can see, there's an archway here and also an archway at the end of the street. And when you can pick it up is when I switch to this next slide. So looking between the traffic lights, you see the difference? So I just wanted to demonstrate with this picture that the archways do not create too much of a canopy. You know, that was a concern. I certainly wanted to address that. And then here is the archway in front of Centro Ybor. I tried to pick very prominent locations that everybody would recognize. And again, this is in has a black archway. The next one has aluminum archway. All right, so a request was made. I want to see the lights. I want to see maybe the archways with a light spacing of 12 inches and perhaps 6 inches to demonstrate, 1 times the number of lights and 2 times the number of lights. So this rendering right here in front of the Columbia demonstrates the archways at night lit up with a 12-inch spacing. And this picture, or this rendering here, demonstrates the archway with LED lights that are at a 6-inch spacing. And something worth noting too is the color and tone of the lights is in line with what currently exists out there. It's a nice warm yellow, right around a 2700 K rating. And this is a nighttime rendering in front of Centro Ybor. This is with the 6-inch spacing. Okay, archway detail. I have here with me the medallion, which I can show. On the ground here, it looks large and imposing, 32-inch diameter, but 20 feet up in the air, I can assure you it's going to look much different. So here's some close-up detail of the medallion and the archway, which is over at Tampa Electric's training yard at 78th and Palm River. Also discussed during the last meeting the possibility of different types of medallions. So we'd like to present these here. We're good with whatever's chosen. If we're going to have medallions on the archways, it'll be consistent all up and down 7th Avenue.
Okay, so some of the streetscape rehabilitation, the typical work will be, the photos on the left are basically pole removals. So again, we'll go in, we'll demo that area, Tika will come in. If that's a pole that's being replaced, they'll replace it there, we'll come in after and restore. The one on the right there, called AP15, is that's for the archway pole, and we're putting in a bulb out there to satisfy that location.
All right, let's talk about the lighting. So the picture on the left depicts a 35-foot ductile iron pole that's going to be used. The poles on this project are going to be coated in black, and the 3 pictures on the right show the LED light fixture that will be used. And again, the tone of the lights will be consistent with what exists out there currently on 7th Avenue. All right.
Okay, so when we get into the streetscape components and materials, again, we're going to replace the pink or Biscayne pavers, we call those the older pavers, with the 8x8 Adobe pavers, and we'll do that all blocks from Nuccio to 24th. And those will also be done in 24th to 26th project, which is a separate rehabilitation project. At the poles where we have conflicts, we'll replace the hexagonal pavers with new hexagonal pavers. Again, at the poles with conflicts, we'll remove, protect, and reset those Walk of Fame hexagonal pavers. At the tobacco leaves that are being impacted due to the light poles, we'll remove those and replace those with 8x8 pavers. And again, I'm going to talk a little more about the tobacco leaves in a minute. Where we have conflicts with the poles, with concrete replacement, we'll just in kind. So if we take out some sidewalk, we'll put the same sidewalk back. And then same thing with any edging or street curb. We might have a little bit of work to be done in some of the parking areas just outside the curb, so we'll replace that pavement at those locations. And if we have any granite curb that needs to be replaced, we'll remove, protect, and reset that. So I'm going to continue on with tobacco leaf art. Basically, these 6 photos are basically at 6 locations where we're impacting the tobacco leaves with new poles. So basically, these would be taken out and replaced with new adobe pavers. So I'll just go through these a little quickly. You can see some of the condition of the tobacco leaves. All right, here's a damaged tobacco leaf that's currently out there, and there are a few that are in this condition. Just, you asked about the condition of some of them, so we have an inventory. So basically, a summary, there's 116 tobacco leaves out there. We would say 28 are in good condition, where you can read the lettering along the marble. About 83, I'd say, are fair, where the writing, the text is starting to fade. You can't really read it. You'd have to stay there for quite some time to be able to piece everything together there. And then again, there was 5 that are very poor condition. They're basically falling apart.
All right, let's talk about maintenance of traffic. So one of the biggest concerns is obviously public safety. These MOT plans were created with just that in mind, not only of the traffic that will be along 7th Avenue, but also the pedestrians. The intent with this project and the maintenance of traffic is to not disrupt the business owners and allow pedestrian traffic still to access the business as to not affect them. The work sites, there's going to be 13 sections of MOT on this project, in between Michio down to 26th. Each section will have a duration of as much as 2 weeks. There are some sections which will be much quicker than that, and there are some sections where I'm sure we'll run into complications and there's more work on that particular section. So yeah, the maximum duration that we would expect would be a max of 2 weeks.
So the contractor for TICO, the contractor for the city, work hand in hand with the maintenance of traffic. And this shows just some pedestrian longitudinal channelizing devices that we would use along the project. Basically what we'll do is we'll protect those areas that are the work areas and channel the pedestrians in the areas outside of those work areas. And we'll do that block by block. And then when we're finished in an area, we'll take these devices and we'll reset them at the next block.
All right, the current schedule. Given the material lead times and other considerations, the anticipated start date is the first quarter of 2020 for construction. The actual date is to be determined. Some key points. So the TICO contractor that's going to be performing the construction estimates a total of 180 crew days. Obviously, there will be multiple crews on this job, and we may even consider working multiple sections at a time if permitted. And then the 7th Avenue Streetscape from 24th to 26th, that start date has not been set yet. All right, so this time we'll open up for questions.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservations. Staff finds that this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines for the plans that were submitted on June 4, 2021. The request in front of you this morning is for a certificate of appropriateness for the Gateway Arch Lighting Replacement Project from New Seal down 7th Avenue to 26th Street. On page 3 of your staff report, there were some conditions attached to it. They were addressed this morning. You have some discussion points this morning. They provided you with some color options for the spans of the gateway. There are some multiple options for the medallion itself. And they had a rendering showing the lighting at every 12 inches and then every 6 inches. So as you go through your discussion with them, kind to focus on exactly what options are going to be put into a motion. I believe the lighting expert is here to discuss any particulars with you. And if this is to go forward for a positive approval this morning, that staff would have to be delegated the responsibility if there's certain pole locations that are gonna move a couple inches either way, that could be delegated to staff. And I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vila. Anyone here from the public would like to comment on this case? Please step forward. Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and ask some questions of the applicant, starting with Mr. Gillette's on my left.
Oh, well, thank you. This is the first time I've seen this presentation, and it's, I can tell there's been a lot of effort and a lot of thoughtfulness put into the plan. Just a couple questions, and I think the first question probably isn't, I'm gonna ask it anyway, even though it doesn't appear to be part of the project scope, but I noticed on your survey of the street, there's lots of rather intrusive light boxes. In one case, and I guess those are to control the street, the traffic lights. And then in one case, I even think I saw an electrical meter. Is that the only option within a historic district to deal with that kind of necessary equipment, or can they be buried? Does your project impact any of those locations where there's going to be either existing ones or new ones?
All right, thank you, Commissioner. To answer your question in regards to the traffic box, the traffic signalization and controls would be outside the scope of this project.
Oh, okay.
And also the meters, which I think you're referring to, are for the 5 globe lights. So TICO would feed that meter. It's a City of Tampa meter for the City of Tampa for the 5 globe lights. I can't think of any of those that are going to be impacted on this project. And while it's outside the scope, anything can be done. It can certainly all be put underground. It's just a factor of time and money.
Oh, okay. I just think, given it's a historic district and probably the most prominent street within the historic district, it would really behoove us to look into those as options moving forward. But regarding your project, the one question I had was just the lights. I was glad to see that you commented on the quality and the aesthetic value. I'm just curious, are these going to be programmable, or is there going to be the ability to change colors? Or are you advocating just the white lights?
No, there won't be the ability to change colors. The light will be consistent with the yellow warm glow of the current incandescent bulbs that are currently out there, and they will turn on when it gets dark, and it'll turn off when it gets light.
Okay, so they're not programmable, or there's no function to create some kind of like artscape with them on special days or anything?
That's correct. They're not programmable.
Okay. All right. Just curious about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Welch.
Thank you for your presentation. I got a couple questions. Oh. Can you hear me now?
I can.
All right. Okay, thank you. And I have a couple questions that I'd like to ask. On slide 33.
Would you like me to?
Please.
Okay.
It's particularly there. Back up there. Okay, explain to me what this is. You've got there's the pole, and this is the type of lamp, the light fixture that will be at the top of each pole?
Correct.
Okay, so in the pole on the left, it shows a different style of light. That's not what you're going to use. You're going to use the light on the left. Or light on the right.
That is correct.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to make sure. And all of them will be the lights on the right.
That is correct.
Got it. Okay. Can you go back to the one where it is 6-inch to 12-inch? And may I see that one more time? Give me the fancy schmancy where it goes, we light it, we don't, we light it, we don't. Okay, so okay, hold on, slow down, work with me here. Okay, so this right here is the 6-inch, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and could you do the 12-inch, please? Interesting. Okay, that's what I needed to clarify. And then on slide 45, I think is what it is. Traffic downtime. Is your traffic going to be down during business hours, during the day, or are you planning on doing a lot of the work at night?
The construction will be performed during the day, but pedestrian traffic will still be able to flow to the businesses.
Right, okay. And then I am assuming in what I'm looking at here on this map this is how you're planning to route traffic up Nuncio, down Palm, and then like across 15th, so you'll reroute traffic all throughout. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And what was one last question, and I'm sorry, I'll then I'll be done. Slides 36 to 42, basically your tobacco leaves. Did I understand you correctly that some of them will be going away, obviously, because they were pretty beat up, they're not gonna be salvaged? And then the others will be either replaced where they're at or they'll be relocated? Did I understand that correctly?
The 6 that will be impacted by the poles will be removed.
Okay,
Okay?
okay. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Hi, Jose Perez. Just 2 quick questions. When we look at the spacing of the lights, the 6 and the 12, do we have to, are we picking one that we like better or not?
Yeah.
Okay. And the same with the Y on the medallion?
Yeah, that medallion was agreed upon sometime before I came on a project some years ago. And some discussion came up at the last presentation of, maybe we just have an open circle, maybe we have it appear to be more open. So we'd like to present a couple options for you to look at.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Schiller?
You confused me. You said that the 6 where the poles are will be removed. Did you mean that the broken ones will be removed?
No, the ones that are there now, which I showed in those photos with those locations, those where new poles are going in and those are in the way of the new pole installation, those will be removed. They will not be replaced, those 6 tobacco leaves.
Can you use those to replace the broken ones?
I mean, it's possible. I have communicated with Courtney, and she's been talking with the city art staff, so.
So I've had discussions with Robin Nye, the city's arts manager, and they will be repaired eventually. It's just not on the top priority list of the arts inventory list to be repaired immediately. The conservators rated them to be in fair condition about 2 to 3 years ago, so they'll eventually all be improved. But if we ended up putting any funding into it by chance through this project, they would move it up the list immediately. So they're not all going away. They will be repaired
The broken
eventually.
ones.
Yeah, all of them that are remaining on 7th Avenue would eventually, as part of them being in the arts inventory of the city, they would be repaired. So they're not going away.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Mr. Schiller?
No questions, thank
Okay.
you.
Well, I'm going to stay on the pavers. So just to summarize, that we're only affecting 6 tobacco leaves with this project. Everything else is inventoried, but that's a separate project, not within our
That's
purview.
correct.
Okay. So you mentioned during your presentation that there's one archway light that has a 35-foot pole as compared to a 29-foot pole. Is that both sides of the pole is higher? Would the archway lights be higher, or is it just the pole that's higher?
The pole will be higher, and then the archway will be slightly higher for aesthetic purposes and also for clearance reasons. And I can demonstrate that it will be the one right in front of Central Ybor. This will be the one. And then the reason for that is because of the pedestrian balcony that's right there. Sufficient clearance has to be made between any sort of electrified conductor and a pedestrian archway. In order to achieve that, because of the proximity of the pole with that balcony, we have to go higher to achieve that electrical clearance.
Where's the electrical line there?
Oh, it will be any of the lights, and the service wire will be running on the south side of the road. So it'll be on the right-hand side of the picture, running to the east and west.
Okay, and so because that balcony is there, it affects the required clearance separation of electrical lines.
Yes.
What happens when the streetcar crosses 7th Avenue? What happens there?
There would be sufficient
I think
clearance
there's
for that.
more
There-
voltage there.
Well, yeah, the NESC requires a clearance from pedestrian balconies, from signs, from side of building. The clearance that would be needed there would require a slightly taller pole.
So that one may be higher? You don't
That's
know?
the only one that would be different than the others. Same pole, same material, same archway, just slightly taller.
Okay. Okay, and then, staying on the poles, every pole, every new pole or renovated pole is gonna get an LED area light on top?
Yes, yes.
So that's typical?
Yes,
And that's controlled by a photocell?
that is correct.
Okay. How are the archway lights controlled? Are they by photocell
Photocell also, yes.
also? And the conduit, all the wire that's controlling the archway lights, is that gonna be buried or is that gonna be strung from pole to pole?
Strung from pole to pole. Everything,
So that's gonna be
everything will be
visible.
overhead.
Okay. So we're getting rid of some wire, but kind of adding some back. Okay. And the aluminum stock that you're gonna use for the archway lights is still 1x1?
That's correct.
Okay, that's consistent with the mock-up that you made, as well as it appears consistent. I think at one point in time, you guys were talking maybe like 2x2, where it seemed to get a little bit heavier, but everything that we've seen today appears to be like 1x1, a pretty thin stock.
Yeah, according to the engineer drawing, yes.
Okay, and then the LED lights will be attached to the outside of that?
That is correct.
With a mechanical type of fastener?
Correct.
Okay. I think two things that were kind of discussed, presented here, are the spacing of the lights at 6 inches and 12 inches. And then the medallion spacing, whether that's in or out. Do you, as the consultant, as the agent, have a preference that you'd like to present to this board? I think we're flexible in working with you, but I think we'd need to know what your preferred options would be for the sake of this presentation to the board.
Okay, the preference would be to stick with the medallion that was agreed upon some time ago with the Y. And as far as the lighting goes, the 12-inch spacing, I think is, in my opinion, more aesthetically pleasing and also at a lower cost.
Okay. Okay, any further questions for the applicant? You have a few moments to address any concerns or discussions that we've had, and then we'll close the case.
Thank you.
He was saying that you have about 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Oh,
If you
no,
like to
no.
make any closing comments or anything like that?
No, my apologies. No, I do want to thank you for the opportunity to present this project.
Okay.
It's been a wonderful journey so far. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we can discuss this case amongst ourselves. Mr. Schiller, would you like to start the conversation?
Well, we're going to have a straw poll here regarding the 6 inches or the 12 inches. That's all I'd like to know.
Yeah, I think the 6 inches is a little too strong. I like the 12 inches. It looks more consistent with what they've actually got there, what there is there now. So it's more historically compatible with what we've seen with the archway lights. I think the 6 inches tends to get a little bright, and it's probably more of a maintenance thing. So I think 12 is nice ambient lighting level.
I like the 12 too. I think the rendering does a disservice to the 12. But
Yep.
I think the 12 is where it is.
Yeah, looks like some of the lights are out already.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is, I mean, it's going to happen, but
It's a render.
I think that, I mean, we're looking at the screen right now with the 6 inch spacing. It just seems a little bit too bright, and I certainly think the 12 inch spacing is appropriate for the district.
I would tend to agree with you, and the other thing is, although it wouldn't be great, if we made a mistake, it's not the end of the world. They could fix it.
Well, I think the mistake would be making it too bright, and they're becoming too focal of an element.
Yeah.
Like, they almost look like two holiday, not like holiday lights, which wouldn't be appropriate year-round.
Yeah. And I know some of the ideas that were tossed around before was making it programmable and changing colors, and it's a function of cost, really,
Right.
and controls, but.
So it might be distracting.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Kamaria Pettis-Beckle from the City Attorney's Office. Commissioner Gillots, can you turn your microphone
Oh,
on?
yes,
Thank you.
apologies. Yes. Yeah, I was just thinking for special events, it would be kind of fun, and you could turn it over to artists, but I could imagine it being distracting as well.
I guess the other item that we want to talk about, the medallion. We had some conversation on the last time that this was presented, whether it's in or out, and I think some of the concern was that the medallion might be a little bit too heavy, when you're looking at them down 7th Avenue, but I think what we've seen today, I'm okay with it. I think it's, the letter Y for the Ybor City, whether that's in the medallion or not, I think they presented a couple different options, so I'm not sure if we have a preferred direction on that.
I wasn't
Mike?
part of,
No,
I wasn't
go
part of the org discussion, but Seeing the expense and how unique these are to 7th Avenue, to me, it enhances the project in that it really makes them more specific and contributes to the kind of placemaking aspect of this installation.
My thoughts are, they answered the questions that we had when they brought it to us back in whenever. So they answered those things because our big concern was the covering that it would present over 7th Avenue. So I think we need to, I think what they've presented is good. I also think they answered our questions from originally, which was, are we gonna block 7th Avenue? They were able to present renderings to us so we could see more of what it's really gonna be like. Because all we could imagine was in our head was this dark covering over 7th Avenue with this during the day. I think that was the big thing, was during the day. Were we gonna have a dark covering over 7th Avenue? Because we got all this heavy stuff going across there. So I think they answered it. I think we need to leave it up to them. What they've presented is acceptable to us. It appears to be acceptable to us either way. Whether they do the opening, whether they do the Y. I know the Y makes it significant to Ybor. They've recommended the 12-inch lighting. We've all seemed to agree on that. That was a concern. They've presented the black versus the aluminum. Either one of those in Liz Welch's mind is okay. You know, so I think we need to leave it to the experts and the committee that's been working on it for the last bazillion years and let these guys move forward.
Did the committee originally want aluminum and then we asked for black?
We questioned the fact of, is what they were presenting, was it gonna be too dark going down 7th Avenue during the day?
You mean like too visible or
Too
too
visible,
heavy?
too,
Okay.
yeah, and it would feel like a covering over 7th Avenue, and they've blatantly presented that, no, that's not gonna be the case.
So personally, I'd go with the aluminum, because the aluminum is up there. And regardless of how you powder coat or paint that thing, every 6 years, you're gonna do it again, which means a big maintenance budget.
And I am not disagreeing with that thought process, but I have to assume that the committee has taken a look at that, because the city's gonna have to maintain it and would have laid out the ongoing maintenance budget. So I would have to agree in that thought process. But again, I go back to, I think we really need to let this committee that's been diligently working on this, or this group of people that have been working on it, and the experts, we need to let them make the decisions. They've met our criteria.
But you two are part of the committee as well, right? So you've been part of these discussions? No?
I was on the board, and then I had to go
Oh,
off the
okay.
board for a couple years because my term was up, and I just recently came back on the board.
Okay, now.
So it was there, it was in the picture, because I couldn't figure out why the heck we were putting all that money away. I didn't grasp it. So it's there, but we, yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Just really quick, your brief discussion about the concern about which color or material to use, whether black or aluminum. There was a brief discussion about the maintenance costs. Your decision should be focused primarily on the design element and not maintenance costs for that. That's not, your focus is on the design.
So it seems to me that as a commission, if we move forward, we have like 3 decisions to give them direction on. And I think it should be not just, I think it should be like part of the motion, not leave it up to them. Because again, we're here for the aesthetics, how this project's going to impact the historic district. But it seems like we're in agreement that it would be a 12-inch spacing on the lighting. The Y medallion as presented would be acceptable. And then in terms of the color, just to be clear, the poles, we're asking for the poles to be black to match the other architectural features on the street, but then it's still optional as to what the archway is.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, if you look at the general aesthetic of the district, I mean, if in the rendering that's on our screen, I mean, the trash cans, the benches, they're black, the 5 globe lights are black, so it certainly carries that aesthetic throughout, and And these streetscape elements should be in unison, they should be similar, so I'm okay with the black. You know, from a maintenance standpoint, that's all, you know, kind of factored in. Tico's gonna maintain these, so they've got that factored in. But I think our concern with making this black in the past was that it was gonna be too heavy. Not only the size of the archway light, but also the color, and especially during the day. But you start looking at the gateway elements that we have down by Nuccio, that's black.
That's black.
You know, and that's got a lot of decorative work in there, and, you know, it fades away. I mean, you notice it, but it's not overbearing.
Could I ask the opponent to show those often to the black versus the
Aluminum?
switch back and
We're not gonna, I don't think we wanna open the public hearing, but could the applicant put the renderings up of the aluminum versus black?
Yeah.
Just to carry the discussion further, I would agree that I think I'd prefer to see them in black, partly because I think they would look more distinctive and of sort of a higher quality. These are permanent, and they are seen during the day and the evening. And in terms of their transparency, I don't think whether they're black or aluminum is going to make much of a difference. My fear that if they're aluminum, they're going to look a little bit like we were trying to save money.
Yeah.
I always feel that when I see new, intersections built in the city of Tampa, in some districts it seems like they go with a painted or a coated, and then in others it's just
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at right now. So, on our screen, thank you for putting that
You
up.
wanna see
That's with the black, and it's got the decorative medallion in the middle with the Y, and I think that's a nice, the only thing that's kind of missing from this rendering is at the top, they're gonna have the LED downlights, which is kind of shown on adjacent light, but every pole is gonna have some downlights there.
Yeah, I mean, they're referencing the filigree you see on the historic wrought iron, and you would never have an unpainted metal wrought iron balcony in the district, so I think black would be more appropriate.
So I think it picks up a lot of the historic character of the neighborhood, certainly with the 5 globe lights and the streetscape.
I do too.
Now, we haven't discussed the actual light fixtures, but I'm assuming that there's been lots of discussion as to whether they should be more historic sized or if they should be modern. I'm perfectly happy with the modern ones.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an LED, so I don't think there's a specific size, but they're really small compared to what, because the lights that they have out there right now, the existing ones are basically
Christmas lights.
Christmas lights.
Right.
So you can see the globe. So, I mean, LEDs are all getting smaller, and it's going to be mechanically attached to that aluminum frame with the wire. So,
I think it's a very thoughtful project, and will make quite an impact.
yeah,
Yep. Do you need a motion?
I think we do. If everyone's good with everything.
Do you want to do it?
I'll let you.
Okay. See, it's been a while for me, but here we go.
I think we have a few conditions on this, right?
Right. So this is a final approval. This is to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC 21-31 for the area along 7th Avenue between Nuncio and 26th Street. Because based upon the findings of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the city design, Ybor city design guidelines for the city of Tampa for the following reasons. That the proposed streetscape improvements are consistent with the placemaking aspect of the importance of 7th Avenue within the district with the following conditions. That the project move forward with a 12-inch spacing as shown at the public hearing, that the center medallion is the option that includes the Y for Ybor City, and that the finish on the poles and the archway is black, as is consistent with other street features within the historic district. And then, just to put it in the motion as well, they've been clear that they've been speaking with the city department in regards to the public art component. We just want to put that in the motion, that they have continued to have discussions regarding any impact on the tobacco leaf art projects that are part of this City of Tampa's public art inventory.
And could you state that it's also consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards?
Oh, sure. Because based upon the findings of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines for the City of Tampa. And, oh, you're asking me to do the, oh, and also because it's consistent with the specific code sections of the design guidelines referenced with the Secretary of Interior standards.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Yeah, I feel like applause are in order. It's a lot of work.
Thank you all for your hard work on this one. We're now move to case BLC 21-145.
Thank you, Rich, and that was for the address of 1313 East 15th Avenue. There was a non-contributing structure on that parcel that has been raised. The zoning classification is YC2. The request is for a certificate of appropriateness for a duplex with some site improvements. Moving to the photo presentation, I do have the Sanborn from 1929. You see the general fabric of the immediate vicinity. This is 15th Avenue that fronts this parcel. And then you have 14th Street to the east. You have 13th Street to the west. There is an alley that runs east and west behind this. It's a 15-foot alley. And this is a pretty large parcel, which we indicated on the photos. This is our vicinity map showing the property in question is over here to the north of the interstate. Overhead shot, you see the size of the parcel as I indicated, alley behind it, and then 13th to the west, 14th Street to the east, and 15th Avenue in the front. You see the interstate to the south. This is looking at the non-contributing structure that was removed, just showing just the different sides of that structure, but obviously starting with new construction. There was a large tree in the back that came into play as far as the site planning and the condition of the alley in both directions. The area, this is to the north of the subject site. See some of the vernacular in the area. Takes on the period appearance with the engaged front porch. You see elevation from grade, and you see the setbacks that are very important as we discuss infill construction, and that will be presented through the public hearing. And just lastly, to show some more fabric on that same block. At this time, Mr. Gibbons will address the board and start with his presentation. Mr. Gibbons, before you start, you need to be sworn in, please. And everybody else that wishes to testify for either this case or something in the future, please stand up and let's get the swearing going. Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will be providing this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Good morning, my name is Joe Gibbons with Gulf Bay Builders. I'm the owner and applicant of the project. Starting with the site plan, as Ron had mentioned, there was a previous non-contributing structure that has since been removed. And the former structure had a curb cut that was on the east side of the property that I intend to use. It's going to be a ribbon drive with 3-foot wide ribbons, landscaping in the middle, the parking areas in the back. There's also a pedestrian walkway on the west side that will be used by the owners. The parcel is 70 foot by 122 foot. It's zone YC2 with a future land use of R20. It would have permitted 3 units, but I've chosen to simply do a duplex on the project. There's a existing kind of a boulevard between the curb and the sidewalk that will be improved. This is the site looking from 13th Avenue looking south. The structure has been removed. This is looking east to Avenue Republica de Cuba. This is the subject site here. This is where the existing curb cut was from the former structure that we intend to use for the ribbon drive. This again shows that area that will be improved, the little island landscape here, the existing curb cut that we'll utilize. This is a structure at 1307 East 15th Avenue that I did early last year. Kind of shows the improvement. We'll be putting in new sidewalk. This kind of shows the ribbon drive coming through. And this one, we also utilize the existing sidewalk or curb cut that was existing. This is the structure to the immediate west at 1311 East 15th Avenue. This structure has a finished floor elevation of 28 inches, which will match with the proposed structure at 1313. This is the parcel here, the aerial. As I mentioned, it's 70 by 122. There is an alleyway back here, but it's unimproved and I can't drive down it. Again, this is the aerial view showing the aerial with the structure that has been since removed. I've come before the commission quite a few times before on similar type product. This is a brand new product that I've taken some of the recommendations from the commissioners. This new duplex product now has a entranceway on the side for the second floor unit. This will be the entrance to the first floor. Both have porches. They'll be on a stem wall matching the 28-inch finished floor elevation as with the structure next door. Face brick around the on the piers or the piers columns and along the front elevation. We have exposed soffit, exposed rafter tails, some barge rafters. This will be a V-groove soffit. The windows are a Geldwin architectural site window that we've used previously. We've got the hardy trim, the artisan trim around it. We have a historical sill, crown molding. Between the floors is a 12-inch separation. Shows another angle. This will be the entrance to the second floor unit away from the front. Shows the brick column here. Brick will be across the front. Shows some of the exposed rafter tails. A little bit more. As we continue with the brick, we have place brick on the, about every 12 feet to give it the appearance of a piers, and then in the middle will be a smooth sand finish stucco. The porch ceilings will also be the same 1x6 V-groove as the soffits. Shows kind of the brick piers here, wrapping around from the front elevation. The exposed rafters, crown molding, historical sill. Just another front elevation. This is an example of previous finished product. This is actually 2 structures over. This is at 1311. The proposed is here at 1313. This is a project we finished last year. Kind of shows some of the finished details, exposed rafter tails, barge rafters, typical brick columns. Shows the brick piers along here, smooth finished stucco between the columns, typical handrail on the second floor. This shows how the ribbon drive comes in off of the street, and then the parking's in the back. We put the AC units, and one of the things that we're doing now is expanding this concrete pad area for the trash receptacles, so they're not out front. This is another, this finished last year as well. Kind of shows some of the finished details, the crown molding, historical sill, the brick, typical railing features. This is another one, just kind of a different angle with some of the exposed finishes. This is just a couple blocks over, Avenue de Cuba. There again shows exposed rafter tails, barge rafters, the hardy siding. This is another one. This is actually on Columbus Drive. Shows how we do the ribbon drive, the parking in the back, the correct historical scoring. This is a 5x5. Sidewalks are 3x3. The exterior finishes, the roof shingles are GF Timberline asphalt shingle. Typically, we put a color palette together and submit that to Ron for his final approval. The front door is a one-light full glass Therma-Tru door that we've used on previous structures. This kind of shows the 1x6 V-groove ceiling board. That's also on the soffit. The one-light Therma-Tru door. This is the historical sill we use, and then we have the historical crown molding. 1x6 artisan around the windows and doors. The entry hardware is the Schlage Century. This project will have the hardy, it's the 7 1/4 smooth hardy siding with the smooth trim, with the exception of the windows, which is the artisan 1x6 from Hardy. Again, this shows some of the historical sill, the artisan trim around the windows. Kind of shows how we do the brick columns and the typical handrail. Crown molding, the beadboard. Crown above the windows and doors. historical sill, kind of the window, gentleman sightline window, which is a wood window with aluminum cladding. Artisan trim. This is a cross-section of the historic sill. And then a cross-section of the crown. That concludes my presentation for 1313 East 15th Avenue.
Good morning, Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Mr. Gibbons, thank you for that complete presentation. On page 3 of the staff report, staff's findings that this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines. This is the first time we saw this particular model coming forward, and I still have 2 items for discussion. One would be at the front porch, if you could put the front elevation on, Mr. Gibbons. The front porch is usually a little larger as it was presented. This one's smaller in nature. Seems to be crowded at the stoop area. It does have a full column on the left, it appears. I think it would be a more appropriate transition from the walkway if that column to the left would be a half column or an engaged column. And then also the front porch seems to be in depth about 5 foot. So for it be more period correct and a usable front porch, you have to understand that the porches, back in the early 20s were a place that people used. It wasn't just that transition from the outside to the inside. So if the depth of the porch could be widened a bit, it would be more period correct. And then my last comment is a complete color palette. I don't believe you showed it, or if you want to show it now, or if you want to provide it at a later date. But those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, is anyone here from the public who would like to comment on this case? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and ask questions of the applicant, starting with Mr. Schlotz.
I have no questions, thank you.
Just a quick question. On the tree in the back, Ron mentioned that what are you doing with that tree? I mean, I saw a lot of trees, but
Yeah.
especially the one in the back. Are you keeping that, or is that going away?
Let me find it here. No, we actually had an arborist report.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes, and unfortunately, the trees that are on the property were deemed to be, I believe they were a C9, and we have from Green Leader Consulting, the trees that are on the site, and this tree in the back, G2, and then the one up front, the G3. The G2 is a C8, and then the G3 is a D9, which the D9, the city, I believe, refers to as a 1958 hazardous tree. So once we submit for permit, the city would like us to get that one removed ASAP.
What about the one in the back?
The one in the back, none of the parking is going to be near that.
Okay.
So we're going to look at it and see if some trimming can kind of help preserve it for a few more years.
Okay. No further questions.
I don't have any questions at this time.
If you could put the site plan up again, please. And in the meantime, I just want to thank you for creating a new model or new type for us to look at.
You were the inspiration for that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, and I think it's paid off for you. I had a comment about the site plan because you seem to have a unique situation here in that it's a rather wide site, and you have a driveway along one side and a pedestrian walkway on the other, but it seems like, and I'm just talking until you put up the site plan, but if I'm reading it correctly, you have the entrance to the second unit on the driveway side. It seems like you have an opportunity, if you could flip the plan, to create the second floor unit entrance on the more park-like side, which would be more in keeping with the patterns we see within the neighborhood and more aesthetically pleasing for sure. Is it part of our packet? I don't think
it disappeared. Can I fit this larger one on?
Okay. Well, my comment still stands. I mean, you do have a wide easement on both sides, but if you understand my comment, it seems like it might be more attractive if you could flip the plan so that the entrance to the second floor unit would be on the more park-like side opposed to the driveway side. You might even have the ability to expand that porch area, the landing, to make it more of a usable space like Ron was talking about in regard to the front porch.
The reason I left the entrance here is the walkway from the public city sidewalk with the direct access coming up this way.
But if you were to flip it, you still have that ability, right? You could, in fact, you could use the one that you're proposing all the way to the back.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Just
Yeah. It's just a thought. I mean, I think it'd be a better use of the property. It would give more of a reason for there to be such a wide easement along the block. But that's just a comment. And then otherwise, I would agree with the staff recommendation. Is it possible to make the front porch on the ground floor unit a little bit deeper so that it is a more functional space?
Right now, we're at 6 feet. And I thought, after I saw Ron's comment, we have these little landing, piers that we've done. I thought of maybe bringing those out a little bit more to give it that, at least on the first floor, can even bring the concrete slab out a little bit more.
Well, I think the comment refers more to the depth of the porch so that you could actually make it a more functional space where you could have some seating or some, some furniture. Like, I don't know if there's a typical width, but certainly 5 feet. It's currently at 5 feet?
6 feet.
6 feet. Yeah, I mean, even 8 feet I think would make a big difference in terms of how usable it is. And then also, more importantly, provide the kind of recesses in terms of from the volume that fit more historically within what we see.
Yeah, I can get back, with the architect to see, how that would stack up here. It might have to, this front gable would probably come out more and keep the smaller one recessed back in.
Well, I wouldn't want to see you change the front of it too much. I think it's really a matter of pushing that wall back, because you wouldn't want to minimize the differentiation of the gable that comes out, the secondary gable. So, I mean, it clearly would impact your interior space, but perhaps you have room in the back to push the whole thing back a couple feet. But that's the only comment I have.
Okay. I'll go ahead and, I think 6 feet is actually pretty decent depth. I mean, 5 feet's getting a little tight. You can't really get tables and chairs, small table and chair out there, but 6 feet's actually pretty decent with a walkway space. So I don't really have an issue with that. And I think the way the massing here works with the bedrooms being pushed out is kind of a unique characteristic here. I guess when I go and look at the site, Joe, I think you have a pretty big site compared to most of the other sites that you normally have. And I think you have a lot more space that you could use, and maybe, maybe the other duplex, there just seems to be a lot of width in there for, you have a walkway plus a driveway. It seems like there's a pretty good amount of space in there, and what kind of bothers me about this one is the side entry, and I think there's a valid point there that the side entry is on the traffic side as compared to the pedestrian side. My question is there a precedent in the district for having a mid-floor entry coming into a house? Because and I think when we talk about that side entry, I'd like to, could you comment on what the material finishes are? It looked like it was just stucco with no trim or anything. You have trim on the columns. Would you like to discuss that a little bit? Sure. I think this lot is, 70 by 120, you said?
Correct, yeah. It's zoned for 3 units, but we chose just to do a duplex. It's actually, this would be all CMU block with smooth finished stucco, and the handrail would be appropriate, and then the landing has got the the same exposed rafter tails, and carry the same columns that are on the front around to the side here.
So it's all stucco, except for the wood trim of the handrail and the...
Yeah, then this would actually be concrete slab here with a 2-inch exposure, and then the columns would be the hardy trim.
Is there any evidence in the district of doing a mid-floor? Because if you look at that west elevation, you can read the floor levels going across, and then all of a sudden it's like you're popping a door halfway up the side of the wall.
Yeah, one of the ones that we kind of used as the inspiration is on 1015 East Columbus, and there were some others in the district that just weren't very presentable in their existing condition. This was about the best one I could find that has the second floor unit with a side entry.
That entry goes in at the second floor level, right? Because
Yeah.
you're doing half the stairs inside the house and half the stairs outside.
Correct, yeah.
Would you know of any precedent in the district for having that mid-floor?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We've tried to, minimize as much of the exterior stairs as possible, so we didn't have this huge stairway.
Mm-hmm. And then you had mentioned, I'm going to jump over to the site plan now, you had mentioned the finished floor height, which matches the adjacent properties. What's your setback from the front? Does that match the adjacent properties or average it, or?
The one to the west is set back a little bit further, and in the original presentation to staff, it was in line, but Ron had asked us to bring it up to the 10 feet because the one at 1307 and the one next to that and the one next to that are all at about 10 feet. So we pulled it up to keep in line with the other structures that are further west. And then the structures to the north across the street all appear to be at 10 foot.
Then the one to the east there appears like it's 3 feet.
This one actually fronts on
Okay.
Avenue Republica de Cuba. I always murder that name, so I'm not sure if that's 15th Avenue, 15th Street.
Okay. And you didn't provide any wall sections in your presentation today, but I assume, based on a lot of your photos, that your windows are all set back within the walls, or not front facing, they're
Correct.
center glazed.
Correct. Yeah, we've been using the Geldwin sightline window, which is, I believe it's 2¼ inches thick. It's a wood window with aluminum cladding.
Okay. And I think those good use of materials. I think the only thing that bothers me is that side entry, and I don't know if that could be detailed better with some trim work, or, I don't know.
One thing that I was thinking about here, Rich, while you've been discussing it, is maybe bringing this brick, you know, kind of around, and you know, how I've got the brick face on the front here, is maybe bringing some of that around just to kind of break up this stucco finish on the stair.
I mean, ideally, it would look like that side porch would be resting on brick piers with secondary kind of infill, but
We can discuss that.
Maybe I could just continue the brick underneath these columns then,
Yeah.
to give it that pier.
Just quick comment, maybe with what you're saying is turning the gable roof facing the street rather than on the side. So you're coming up the stairs to the front, not the side of this porch.
Oh, you mean like,
You know, with the two columns facing to the front instead of on the side.
So the roof would be like, takes up this whole area?
Yeah,
Right
so
there.
this gable right here would be right
Facing
here.
towards the main
Right here.
entrance.
yeah.
I don't know,
So
just a
he
thought.
takes it and just turns it, so this is right here.
Or, well, we're almost in
I
discussion.
don't know if that helps with what you're saying, that it feels like you're coming mid-level, but
Yeah.
it could help.
And typically the gable would turn here. So I think that detail, I think, was more appropriate there, unless it's more of like a lean-to.
Right, a shed.
Just shed it. But then, you know, part of me wants to say that, well, that shed starts here, up at the front, and works all the way back and covers the whole section of the stair, you know, to make it kind of be less intrusive. But, you know, I think my issue is there's really no precedent for that kind of side entry like that at a mid-floor level, and that's what I'm kind of,
Why don't we go to
Wrestling with.
discussion? Why don't we
yeah.
finish and leave that for
I think
discussion?
it's a good thing. Because functionally, you're gonna be dragging your grocery up those stairs. So who wants to drag 2 bags of groceries all the way up to the top of the stairs, put them down, open it up, step inside and grab it? Whereas, this is intelligent, and I like the fact that you grab your 2 bags of groceries, you put them down, you go for your key, and you're in. You know, I think it makes more sense to me, I like it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I know we're kind of moving into discussion here, but, okay. Want to go ahead and, you want to make any summary comments, and then we'll close. I think we're done with questions, right?
I think did we ask for public comment?
Yeah, we already did. So, you have a few minutes if you want to summarize your statements or any of your findings, or there, and then we'll, yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, on the front of the elevation is looking at, you know, Ron had mentioned maybe seeing if this could be a half post. I'd have to get with the engineer to see if this one up here could also be a half post. We've done it in the past. I believe we can carry this truss all the way across, so that would break that up and maybe even give it the feel of a, you know, the larger front porch, and then maybe even expanding these little column, or the flower planters there. And then on the side, I'd like to continue that brick kind of in line to give it the, you know, that pier look, just carry that brick down on these, underneath these columns there, so it looks like they're on the piers.
So something that you'd want to put like siding in between the brick, or just keep the stucco there?
I think since this is stucco here, I could put the siding, and that would really break that up, I think.
Yeah, that looked nice.
Kind of breaks up the element, makes it a little bit more consistent with the body.
Yeah.
And this could be the siding.
Okay. Mr. Gibbons, would you like to say anything else, or we're gonna wrap it up?
I think that's it for now.
Well, this is going, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle for the record. This will conclude your rebuttal time, so if you have any other comments, now is your time to say it for the record. Because otherwise they're going to close the public hearing.
Right. No, I think that concludes my rebuttal.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing, and then the commissioners now can discuss the case. Start on my right with Mr. Schiller.
Yeah, regarding that, the side loading staircase, if I were to leave here, I'd come back in an hour and see 20 pictures of metal staircases, wooden staircases, 4x4, 3.5 by 3.5 inch normal posts, where people have wanted to rent, they've subdivided, they've done a cheap job, the fire department comes in and says, no, you can't do that, you need this entrance, right? And they're all over Ybor City. I don't know that any of them are like this, but I will say that this one is way better than any of those, and they're everywhere. I would suspect that most of them go all the way up to the second floor, because they didn't want to get into the first apartment, put a turn there, you know, and box in a landing and do all that structural stuff inside the downstairs apartment. But I have really no objection to this whatsoever. I think it's I hate to use this word, I don't want to get anybody saddled with quirky, but I like it a lot. I think it's
Just curious, what are your thoughts on the flipping of the plan?
I think it makes a lot of sense. We didn't really hear a response from the applicant, but just in terms of the unique width of the site and the fact that it's a park site and a driveway site. Again, I think this applicant has come before us with a lot of these kind of similar types of duplexes, and we have asked, or at least I've asked, for slight variations that make sense, a different kind of typology. So the side entrance, I think, is a successful attempt at that. It makes the front of the facade much, much more attractive and in keeping. I'd like to see it flipped, and then I'd also like to see the porch deepened, and I think we can leave that at staff in terms of the porch detailing on both the front and the side, because he's pretty close.
If I'm the tenant on the second floor and if I'm the tenant on the second floor following your idea, I want to stop the car right there, get out, put the groceries there, and then park and then come up. So
yeah,
if I flip
that's
it, I have
That's
to do
a
that
good
from the
point.
street. That's my only,
That's a good point.
You're right, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't thought about that, but you're right.
it's the only issue that I have with flipping, based on what you've said, which makes a lot of sense. That's all.
Not allowed to say.
First of all, thank you for what you're presenting here. I remember the couple times you've come to the board and we've presented several different suggestions and changes, and I appreciate that you, number one, listened to us, and number two, took the suggestions that we offered. It produces a nice product. I agree with what you're saying about the groceries, because when he was presenting, that was part of my thought was, number one, I appreciate the cover over the porch where I have to stop and get out my key and open the door. So I appreciate that there's a cover over that. And although I noticed the fact that the door's in the middle of the building versus up on the second floor, I appreciated that I didn't have to take such groceries up all the flights to get to the second floor. So I did appreciate that. Excuse me.
Well, you still would. They just would be inside.
Right, better. But yes, they would be inside, that's true. I like the fact that you've extended the back air conditioner pad to include the trash, because when I drove around and checked out the area, I noticed some of that. So I appreciate that. And I think those were my couple things that I felt I needed to comment on. Thank you.
Yeah, I think about when we look at mirroring that, you know, if you look at like the block averaging of where the adjacent structures are, it kind of makes sense to have the bedrooms kind of pushed out a little bit further to go with the house that faces that. So, and then functionality, you know, functionally, you know, yes, you can drop off your groceries and then drive around and park in the back. It just seems like, you know, you want a pedestrian zone and then you want a vehicle zone, and you know, that person could be blocking traffic, dropping off their groceries for their neighbor, which, you know, only take a minute, but it could be, you know, oh, I forgot about it and I'm blocking the driveway. So there's two different kinds of zones there. The depth of the front porch, I think 6 feet, you know, they're not utilized as much as they used to be, but you can still get some, you know, a small table and some chairs out there. So I think the depth is okay. I think, you know, maybe moving forward, you know, with some of these designs, maybe you give it another 2 feet and bring, you know, you have more room back there. I mean, you could almost get more square footage out of the unit just by, you know, stretching that front bedroom and bringing everything back a little bit, maintaining your front side. So a little extra porch wouldn't be a bad thing there. The side entry, you know, I've seen numerous examples of this in Boston, you know, and places up north where they're trying to get indoor space and outdoor space for the staircase, probably Michigan as well. So it's just, I think when we see it here in the district, it's more of an afterthought. And since we're designing ahead of time here, you almost want it either to be all in the building or all outside the building. And, but I think that being said, that entrance going in the side, even though it's at mid-floor level, does offer some convenience to the tenants. I mean, it's been, you know, the way it's been detailed is a historically sensitive manner. You know, you're using the same material palette and materials there, so I think it's fine. It's still kind of, you know, it's not how you would normally, I think, do that. And since a lot of this, like you did a house two addresses down, right? And you had the parking in the rear. I don't think you had a pedestrian access. You had the ribbon driveway and the parking in the rear. But I think it would almost be more of a convenience to your tenants or your homeowners to have a rear door there instead of having to walk all the way to the front. Yeah. You know, you would have to space out the air conditioning a little bit, but I think that would doesn't really help you when the up-down, but if they're side-by-side duplexes, having a rear entrance there might be more beneficial and convenient there. But I think in general, there's a good use of materials, the palette, all the roofing, the windows, the siding, everything's, you know, in order of what we're seeing in the district and what you have a track record of doing in the district. So I think I'm okay with everything that's presented here. Any other discussion, or somebody want to craft a motion? I don't know if you want to make a recommendation that they mirror it or change anything. We'd have to get him to sign off on it, or we just go as is with some conditions. Or
I'm good on the 6 foot. That works for me too. I think it allows you to put a table or planters and things like that. I don't see an issue with that.
Okay.
I'll make a motion with no conditions. The only condition I think we'll talk about is, sorry. And we don't even have to do it. He's talking about doing face brick under the stairs. Should that be a condition? He's gonna do it anyway. So,
I think we
I'll
need
make
to I think we need to clarify what the intent is, what we're looking for here, and we may need to open the public hearing, make sure, concur that he's acceptable with making those changes if that's the purview of the board. I mean, I think he's indicated that. Is that where you want the motion to go?
No, I would just make a motion for an approval without conditions. And I'd be happy with that.
So no brick piers and no siding there?
It's gonna come out great. We know that. You mentioned track record. Well, it's gonna come out great. So I'm gonna make the motion without conditions. Move that the variance request.
No, it's not variance.
Oops, wrong place. Sorry, thank you. Final approval for the certificate of appropriateness. Okay. Final approval. Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing, BLC 21-145, for the property located at 1313 East 15th Ave, because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City design guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons. It meets all the Ybor City guidelines and Secretary of Interior as well.
I'll second, but if you don't mind, I would like to add a couple of conditions just based on what we've discussed. We spent a lot, no problem?
I don't mind.
Okay. Just based on the amount of time we spent with the project, I'd just like to add the condition that the applicant work with staff to finalize the design of the front columns facing the street and the detailing of the side stoop to the second unit, and also present wall sections and the color palette.
Commissioner Schiller, do you accept the amendment to your motion?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. And are you seconding the
Yes,
amended
seconding
motion?
and then adding the conditions.
And Mr. Chair, can you have the applicant just acknowledge the conditions that were just placed, please?
Okay, we're going to reopen the public hearing.
No, you just asked just whether or not.
Mr. Gibbons, would you concur with the conditions that have been added to the motion before the board right now?
Yes.
Okay. So the applicant acknowledges the conditions on the approval. Any further discussion, or I guess,
Ready
all in
to vote.
favor of said motion? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries with some conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to case number 21-131 for the address located at 2903 North 12th Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. This is got a YC8 zoning classification. The request is for certificate of appropriateness for new construction, single-family residence with some site improvements. Overall square footage is about 1,800 square foot in a frame vernacular style of architecture. Moving to the Sanborn, that's on your monitor right now. Property in question is highlighted in the green parcel. It is on 12th Street. This property is to the north of Columbus Drive for a reference point, and it's in between 19th Avenue and 20th Avenue. This is our vicinity map. It's tucked away in the northwest corner, which is an expanded area to our Ybor City Local Historic District map, Columbus Drive here, and Nebraska. So it's in that upper quadrant. This is looking from above. You see it's a more slender lot, just to the north of 19th. This is looking at the lot from the primary street towards the southern portion of the parcel. You do have this curb cut and this tree that was factored into the overall site plan that Alvaro will discuss with you. Some of the inventory in the immediate vicinity. You have this non-contributing structure to the south, pier structure across the street, non-contributing structure across the street, and an additional non-contributing structure that was built after the periodic significance, and some street shots. This is looking to the south. You have a little corner store here, very appropriate in the urban areas, and then just turn around looking to the north. See some mature trees. You have the primary street. You have some granite curbing. You have the parkway that separates the street from the sidewalk. That's very important for that safe zone. As part of this request, he's going to rebuild the apron where it's at now and create this more urban environment here. At this time, the agent will address the board. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Alvaro Rodriguez. I am the architect of the project. The project is located at 2903 North 12 Tampa, and the zoning of the property is YC8. This lot is not a typical lot. The width of the lot is 30 feet only, and the length of the lot is 95 feet. The front setback that we're gonna use will be 10 feet. That is according with the setbacks of the property on the north side and on the south side. We try to match the average setback for the next properties. The standard setback for sides for that property is 5 feet. We're gonna have 5 feet on the south side, and we're gonna have 9 feet 2 inches to the north side in order to have the driveway to the side of the property. The driveway will be a solid concrete driveway path for 1 car. The length of the driveway will be 28 feet 6 inches to have the complete car parking behind the front column of the structure. The rear setback is 20. We will have 23 feet 6 inches on the back, and we will have the AC pad and the pad for the garbage trash on the back of the property to have any kind of visibility from the front side of the property. There is an existing granite curb on the street, and we add all the notes on the plans that this granite curb will be repaired as original condition in order to create the driveway. This little concrete pad will be removed. The house, because of the size of the lot, is a small house. Will be only, on the first floor will be only the great room, the kitchen, and 1/2 bathroom. And we will have a porch on the front that will be 10 feet wide, 10 feet deep by the width of the house. The total square foot of the house will be only 1,848 square foot. The living area will be 1,600. First floor 756 and second floor 915 square foot. Second floor of the house will be only 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. Roof system will be shingles. The slope of the roof will be 5 and 12 with 1 foot 4 inches overhang, and we will have gable end on the front and gable end on the back. This will be the front elevation of the house. The house is a vernacular style. The finished floor of the house will be 24 inches above existing grade. That is because the houses on the north side, that is the houses that we use as a reference, has exactly the same level above grade. The house on the south is not an example that we can have. It's not a contributed house. The front of the house will have the complete house will be concrete block wall from grade level to the eave height, the 2 stories. We will have 2 concrete columns on the front. The finish of each column will be brick veneers from ground to 30 inches above finished floor elevation. This is the finished floor. The brick will go to this top. And on the top, we will have stucco bands, 3-4 inches stucco bands, 2 inches recess to get to the taper column, and we will have 3 bands on the top that will be 2 inches high. The finish of the column will be stucco finish, smooth, and the finish for the bands will be stucco. The finish for the columns will be brick veneer. Between the 2 columns, we will have half columns that will have a welcome walls that is typical on that area, the welcome walls on this area. Between the 2 columns, we will have the railing that will be 2 feet 4 inches high. For the windows, we will have a 5.5 inches band around the whole windows, and we will have a historic seal on the bottom. The house will be 6 inches green hardy bar siding. We will have 12 inches smooth hardy trim on the space between the first floor and the second floor. We will have a 5.5 inches smooth hardy trim on the top, the corner 5.5 inches trim, the corner 1.5 inches, and the bottom between the porch 1.5 inches. The top of the gable will be hardy shingle siding, and this will be decorative foam band. This will be decorative. The spokes will be 2x6 spokes rafters on the edges of the roof side. We will have a half round metal gutter, and we will have a beadboard on the side of the roof. The color of the house will be a green hardy board. The color of the siding, the total siding, and all the trims and all the windows will be white. Building height from the ground elevation is 26 feet 6 inches, and we have a balanced amount of windows according with the typical section of windows on that area. This is the back elevation, and again with the exposed rafter, with the half roof, with the trim for the window, 5.5 hardy board, 5.5 historic, 6 inches green hardy windows. The railing will be exactly the same one that we have on the front of the house. We have the columns with brick veneers that basically would emulate the same columns that we have, the columns pad that we have for that houses that basically are raised above 24 inches above grade. This is the south elevation, the railing and the pier columns. The house is concrete, the pier columns will be veneers that will be stamped to the concrete. And this will be the smooth finish stucco and the 5.5 inches smooth hardy trim skirtboard on the bottom. This is the north elevation. Again, we add enough windows that will be proportional with the style of that vernacular on that area. This will be the typical section of that house. Basically will be concrete block wall from the footing to the eave height of the roof. We will have a hardy board. We will have the veneers attached to the concrete block wall on the fake piers. And we will have the trims on the connection between the first floor and the second floor, and trims on windows. We have the exposed rafters, the V-board, the half round gutter, and the shingles that we're gonna use for that house. That is the example that I have here for the shingles. This will be the section for the windows with the historic seal and with the trims, 5.5 inches trim on the top, a historic socket on the bottom, and skirtboard on the connection between the first floor and the second floor, and the same on the windows on the second floor, the same that you saw on the elevations. See the section on the back with the railing on the back, the door, and the same type of system. On the porch area, we will have the second floor on that front wall will be wood, will be 2x6 structure. But just on that area, because the span that we have between that two columns is too big, and we have to do that in wood. But the look of the house and the siding and everything will be exactly the same. Nobody will see that is a difference between the structure system of that. This is the detail of the gutter. And this is the palette color. I have it here in color. You want it just on a big page, but this is coming from the palette that you have on this office. Basically, we're gonna use the green light color and the white trim. If you wanna see it on color, I have it here. It's just a big page. This is the idea with the veneers that you see, how they will be attached to the concrete in order to emulate the concrete piers for that type of houses. These are details for the seal, for the historic seal. And it's the same that we have here. And this is the detail for the historic seal on this area. The window would be Marvin Ultimate window. And this is the spreadsheet for that window. This is the detail that we have for the windows, for the trim, that is bigger, but it's the same that we have. It's 5.5 on the top, with a little lip 1 inch on each side, 5.5 on the sides, and historic seal on the bottom. This is the siding that we're gonna use for the house with the hardy plank. The main siding will be 7.25 inches with 6 inches exposure, and for the skirtboard will be 12 inches. And this will be the doors. We have the specs for the doors also. I will. This will be the 5.5 inches smooth hardy board that we will use for the trims. And these are the details for the railing that we're gonna use for that house. This is the picture of the tile. Everything will be done by 2x6, and the top of the railing will be 2x8. And we will have 2x6 studs going down to emulate the columns for that railing system. These are typical houses of that area. I just try to show you when I get more of the detail that we are using as the columns, as the trim on the columns, as the trim on the top of the columns, as the welcome wall, as the half wall, the two-story house that is on that area, the gables, the vents, and the two-story house, and the trims for the windows. The door, specs for the door, the door will be thermal-true door. That is the picture that you saw, and this concludes my presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. After reviewing this project, staff feels that this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines. With a very simple frame style that he presented, and incorporating a railing in the front that's very period appropriate. The railing shows more of an open stance than most of the railings that have to meet code. Fortunately, that the finished floor to the porch is below the 30-inch threshold, so a guardrail is not required. So incorporating a period railing in this particular house met, the criteria. The lot dimensions kind of dictated what the house was going to become. In YC8 is a zoning classification we don't deal with that often. The front yard setback is at 10 where he's there. The side yard is at 5 as a minimum, so he had to push the house all the way over to one side to get the drive aisle and the other side. That's still very tight, but he is able to accomplish, and that's kind of what dictated the vernacular of that house. Just 2 items left. One, the color didn't come off as clear as he'd liked. We do have the color palette in our office that he referenced, and he selected from our color palette. And lastly, when he exits out of the project, this is an opportunity for us to remove the chain link fence that's on the property now, so he could leave it there as a construction fence, but at the end of the project, we'd like to see that removed. I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vila. Is anyone here from the public that would like to comment on this case? Seeing none, the commissioners will now ask questions of the applicant, starting on my right with Mr. Shalatz.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for a very, very concise and detailed presentation. Just one question. How wide are the eaves on the side and the front of the house? The overhangs, I mean, the overhangs.
All the overhangs are 1 foot 4 inches.
And what do you find that seems a little, is that what your research has shown is typical for that neighborhood?
Yes, and also the house is not that wide. And if try to go to, because usually that area has 1 foot 4, most of them, some of them has 2 feet, but because of some of the houses are with a really pitch, 5 and 12 and 6 and 12, usually is 1 foot 4. But if I try to go further, the house is too small to get that proportion on the overhang.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have any questions.
Just a quick question. It said here that you're removing the chain link fence. Are you adding any fencing?
No.
No?
No
fencing?
fence.
Okay. The other comment I had, what was happening on the back patio? I see the little stair coming down with no path or anything. No, it's not covered or.
There is a path.
There is?
Yeah, there is a path on the. I mean, a pad to go to the, I put a easy pad on the back and the pad for the trash can on
the
this
AC.
area.
Okay. So that area is not covered, there's no,
No, there is no cover area there.
okay. So,
I thought I heard you say that the face brick on the columns was going to be stamped. And a few minutes later, you showed face brick that would be applied with mortar. Can you help me with that? What are we gonna do?
I think it was a misunderstanding. I think he meant standard as far as the brick veneer goes. We're gonna do the same brick veneer on all the pillars, all the way around to emulate the period correct pillars. So there's no stamping. It's gonna be smooth stucco, just similar to Mr. Gibbons's properties that have the smooth stucco in between.
Right.
Same brick veneer. So we're basically emulating exactly what that is, period correctness.
Thank you.
We will be putting a wood fence in, removing the chain link as Mr. Vila suggested, leaving it up for construction purposes to secure the property. And then we'll come back in with a period correct wood fence. Won't be panels from Home Depot or anything like that, it'll be period correct wood fencing. Most likely a shadow box fence or a basic 1x6 fencing back that was period correct.
For the record, could you identify yourself?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, good morning, board. My name is Omar Dehelo, I'm the contractor,
Okay.
and I'll be helping with the project.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay, I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, so the concrete, if we're on the site plan, with the concrete, that concrete needs to be scored, it can't be solid. So I think it was one of Mr. Vila's comments, it didn't show up on your plans, are you gonna score the concrete there?
Are you
The
referring
driveway.
to the driveway?
Yeah.
Scoring it for crack purposes or for the crack prevention, or are you looking for the typical scoring to match the period correct 2 drives with the green in the middle?
No, we're not talking about a ribbon, you guys are showing a solid concrete drive. My question is that gonna be scored for more historically sensitive? The previous applicant that you saw had like a 5x5 scored concrete drive.
Yes, we can, I can score it, and I can dress up round over the edges. We can do everything period. It's typically what I do anyway.
Okay. I guess I have a couple questions on the elevations. If you could bring up the front elevation, we can start there. No, Mr. Vila had said, I'm going to continue talking while you're getting that up. Mr. Vila had said that the guardrails aren't required. This one doesn't look too bad, but I think they're too short, both on the rear entry and the front entry. You called them out as about 2 feet tall. I think code would require 36. Proportionally, that doesn't look bad, but on the rear elevation, it looks really short and squatty. So I think you're going to need to make those bigger.
It's 2 foot 4 inches to the top, 28 inches, and based on the height, the elevation of the porch, I don't need guardrails per codes. So for period correctness, we added these in to give you the original visual of what would have been built at that time.
Do you have the rear elevation?
Yes, sir.
Oh. That one, I mean, proportionally, and then code-wise, I think is going to be another issue, because I think, even though it's not required, I think you're still going to want them to be a little bit higher.
I can make them higher. We were just going based upon recommendation of Mr. Vila.
Or is that period appropriate, 2 foot 4? But like, you look at this back one, it looks like it's 2 feet high.
It's 2 foot 4 to the top.
Yes, from
28
the
inches.
grade is 2 feet 4, and according with some of the recommendation that we received, that handrail was used more for seating purpose than for
Seating
railing.
rail, yeah.
For purpose of railing, is more seating area. And a lot of that houses has that railing really low. It's not a standard railing. And it's not required. We don't even have to have guardrails on that high.
Right.
And period correct, a lot of them have galvanized piping, 3/4 galvanized pipe with a flange screw down. Some of the older homes.
Okay. And then when we're looking at our window sills, they look small compared to the other. You have 5.5 inch trim on the top and sides, but then a 2-inch sill on the bottom. You want to talk about that a little bit more?
It's the same dimension typical sills that you have. I don't know if you can see a cross cut here. This is your nominal, here's the dimensions of the front here, 2 1/4 by 2. Comes, it's a hardy trim section. Your window will be recessed in with that sill there. Now, a skirt can be added, but it's not consistent with other windows and other projects in the neighborhood.
Okay.
So this is more period, correct?
Okay, and let's go to the front elevation. And you can have a section of the front porch ready to, we'll move on to that. I think the second floor is really heavy here. Basically, when that comes down, you can see where your second floor framing is from the second floor down to the ceiling plan. Okay, so I think it's 2 feet. It's not very clear on this, but I think I remember it being at 2 feet. And then you drop down another 2
From
courses.
here to here?
Yeah, from your second floor plan to your ceiling plan.
Okay.
2 feet. But then you're dropping another 2 courses. You have CMU that drops below that, which makes that ceiling of the porch appear very low. And it makes it not very proportional. I'd like to see if we can get rid of those 2 courses at the bottom of the porch, because it just makes that bottom level very squatty.
So you want to raise this up to this
Up
level
to
here?
the 5410.
You mean raise the column or raise the beam?
You want to raise the front entry
Raise the front.
level?
Because if you look at it massing wise, I mean, the second floor is way too heavy proportionally to the first floor. It makes the first floor porch really squatty. And if you go to your section through the porch, right
There's
there.
your cross section.
Right. Where your pen was, that's where you have like 2 courses of CMU, right? But really, you come down below the floor framing 16 inches, and I think that needs to be brought up, because right now your beam is at the same level as your window and door height. And it just makes that second floor massing too heavy.
Okay, because we have to have the lintel.
That's not a big deal because
The lintel can go up
We
in
can
the
go
floor
up 8
framing.
inches, but.
we can
with
go
the lintel
8 inches high, but usually that the lintel of all the porches and all that houses are at the same level of the top of the doors and the top of the windows. They don't go up. The ceiling height of that porch is 9 feet 4 inches. Is not low, and the drop is only 1 foot 4 inches. That is typical on that area. If we get that up, basically we won't have any drop on the ceiling. The ceiling and the lint won't have any lintel. Will be just straight. I don't see that typical on that area.
I think there should be a drop there. It just makes that second floor, if you look at the front elevation, it makes that second floor a heavier mass. I mean, you're going all the way from the bottom of the floor, you know, of the porch all the way up to the roof, which is entirely larger than the first floor.
That was
And if you-
the case that we had.
Right, look at that middle photograph on the left-hand side. See how heavy that second floor is compared to the first floor? It's not a,
There's no beam express.
right.
There's no trim across the top of the columns there. So that's why it looks a lot more heavier in this picture. I can maybe change match the 12-inch column banding here on top of the columns to give it a little bit more thickness to emulate a beam going across, like some of the older porches did have a large beam going across that didn't have any structure in the middle. We can do that for emulation. That can break up. If you're concerned about this area here, we can break this up by using that 12-inch piece there.
But we have 2 pieces there. We have 12 inches and 5.5.
Yes, here. And then just making this 5.5, adding
Yeah,
it to
we can-
12. So it'll be just a strip of siding in between the 2 12s.
So I'm just gonna make a quick comment. I think that banding, the 12-inch banding on the second level, it's what's creating that visual lack of proportion. You know, I think if you got rid of it or brought it down to the edge of the porch where the beam is, I think that would help with the proportions.
But it's on the side of the house too.
We would have to
I
drop
mean-
it down the side too. Either drop it down the side or eliminate it off the sides. Then you end up with a wall of straight.
Can you show the side elevation? I can.
Yeah.
Probably helps to bring the windows down a little bit too.
Make them bigger.
If we drop that, we're gonna put that almost right above the windows, like very minimal.
I mean,
maybe
proportionally
6
there
inches.
on the second floor, I think that's fine. I think that works. Maybe the windows are a little bit high, but it's really the front elevation that just, it seems like there's too much mass on that second floor. Even if you look at it on this elevation, it makes the porch very squatty and low.
Why don't we go ahead to design, to the discussion?
Would we put skirts on the windows? Would that help break up the mass between the window and the band? At the upper part of the, or are you more concerned about from the 12-inch band down?
From the 12-inch band down.
Could you notch
I
it?
can
I
raise
mean, I'm
the-
just saying, maybe we get rid of one course, and I understand what you're saying about,
It's okay. I can do it.
I think it's, that gives you a little bit more separation on top of your windows. It still gives you your drop down for the porch, because you're gonna come down and then go back into the porch. So maybe even one course would significantly help out.
Yeah, that's
there.
fine, because we can wrap that with
Yes,
hardy.
we can move it. It's not a big deal.
So we can put that as a condition, just to raise up one course on the front porch.
Okay. And I'm okay with the other things, so, okay, let's, we'll continue moving on. I don't have anyone else have any questions for the applicant? You have a few minutes for summary or, any rebuttal to anything, but I think you've kind of agreed to do that. Move that up 8 inches.
Absolutely.
And, I think, I'd like you to work with staff on the guardrail height. I think it's a little bit too low and squatty, but, if there's a historic precedent for that, even though I know they're not required, but I think decoratively, proportionally, it needs to be a little bit higher. So you have a few minutes if you want to summarize anything? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing, and, commissioners, we can discuss the case, starting with Mr. Schiller on the right.
No, I have nothing to add, thank you.
No additional comments?
Nope, no additional comments.
I agree that the proportions of, and the expression of the porch and the beam along the front needs to be reviewed, or needs to be redesigned and approved by staff. I wanted to bring it up because I think they're proposing, the doors that they showed are doors I haven't seen that we've approved before. One has, it appears to have an inset of some kind of stained glass. And the other one, I believe, you're showing with built-in louvers. Is that correct?
Built-in mini blinds or clear glass.
Yeah. I mean, typically, we haven't approved those. I don't think they really show up in our design guidelines. The panel and the proportions seem okay, but normally there's just a clear light above.
It's basically in his program.
Excuse me, sir. Kamari Pettis-Mackel from the legal department. They've closed the public hearing and they're just discussing the case amongst themselves.
sorry.
Yeah. So just bringing it up because I would prefer to see something a little bit more traditional.
Where was the stained glass?
It was, they showed it when he showed the doors. There's
For the front door?
The front had a stained glass panel, and then the back showed louvers built in between the. And I understand why they would want that for privacy, but traditionally we haven't been approving those.
I agree. Okay, yeah, I think I've raised my concerns. I think we could. I think it's a nice project. It'll be a nice addition to the area. I'm okay with the overhead, overhangs and the slopes, and they've covered that with the V-board, so they're doing the right things here. I think the material palette, work with staff to finalize that, and then raise that front porch up 8 inches to give a little bit more relief to the area. So we can go ahead and entertain a motion. If we're ready.
Conditions?
I think we are.
I mean, I can make the motion, but I'm not sure that I can fully craft the conditions.
Why don't you make the motion, I'll second it and add the conditions.
Actually, Maria Pettis-Mackel from the city attorney's office. Just for clarity, I understand and I appreciate Commissioner Jaloski trying to assist, but if you understand clearly what your conditions are, the conditions that you would like to see on the motion, I'd ask, can you go ahead and,
Okay. Just trying to
draft
give
the
other
motion.
people a chance to craft motions.
I
but-
understand.
Oh, no, you're all over it. You're good, you're all over it.
Okay, well, in this case, I'll go ahead. This would be for final approval with conditions Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings presented at this public hearing in BLC 21-131 for the property located at 2903 North 12th Street with the following conditions: that the applicant modify the design of the front porch, specifically the detail of the beam and the, what's the other top one
The
called?
lintel,
The-
yeah, 8 inches, raise that front
Yeah.
beam up.
Okay, modify the front porch header detail as discussed at the public hearing, that the applicant have the front doors, front and rear door approved by staff based on more historical options as shown in the design guidelines, that the applicant remove the existing chain link fence once construction is done, and that any proposed fencing on the site also be approved by staff. Because based on the finding of fact, then the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guideline for the City of Tampa for the following reasons: the site position, the scale and massing, and the details and design elements proposed are consistent with the design guidelines referenced and follow the Secretary of Interior standards.
I'd like to add 2 conditions to that, if okay.
Okay.
That the applicant explore the concrete driveway in a 5x5 pattern and work with staff on the height of the railing.
At the front and the rear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Gelas, do you accept the amendment to your motion to add those additional
Yes.
conditions?
I do.
Okay, and now you just need a second.
I'll second.
And can you ask the applicant if they accept the
yeah.
conditions?
And you've heard the conditions that have been put before on this application. Are you in agreement with the conditions as stated?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the applicant agrees, and we will entertain all in favor of said motion with conditions, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're gonna go to a quick recess for, we've been here about 3.5 hours, or 3 hours, 2 hours? So, we're gonna take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
How long of a break is it?